This presentation is about the exciting, well, maybe not, but important subject about the AE Notebook. We'll discuss what it is, what's required to be in it, and how it can be used. I like to think of the AE Notebook as a continuity book, something that can be passed along. When you have new AEOs come in, they can review it and kind of be up to speed on what's going on. I became involved in Civil Air Patrol when my son joined a cadet squadron, and the senior members there asked if I would help out, and I asked, sure, what can I do? They said, we need an AEO officer, and after finding out what it is, I asked what I needed to do. Well, there was no AEO there to help me out, and there was no continuity book, at least, or AE notebook that I knew of, and it would have been very helpful to get me established in the position. The AE notebook is also a resource book, giving you direction and information on all the resources and publications that are available to you as an AEO. You can, although it's not required, also use your AE notebook to keep track of records of what you've been doing throughout the year, so that when you come up to having submit your activity report at the end of the year, you have all the information readily available. Not to mention, when the SUI comes around and they ask what you've been doing in your program, you can pull that out and readily tell them exactly what you've accomplished in the last 2-year period. So, where do you find information on the AE notebook? It's discussed in the CAP pamphlet 50-2, the specialty track. In fact, there's only one performance requirement to attain your technician rating in the specialty track, and that is to compile an AE notebook. There are 10 specific tabs that are required to be in the AE notebook, but that's just a minimum. As I mentioned, you might want to also include information on what you've completed throughout the year in your AE program. The specialty track pamphlet tells you what tabs are required to be in the AE notebook, but beyond that, it gives you a lot of latitude as to what you might include as subparts of each of those tabs. It also gives you latitude on what method or platform you might want to use to build your AE notebook. You might do something creative with crayons or magic markers. Not recommended. It doesn't look that professional, and it's hard to edit when there are changes. You can develop it using a Word document. It makes it easy to edit, and you can also put links if you want. Another method could be to have 10 separate folders for each tab in which you can put information, and then it would need to be put somewhere that it would be accessible. In this example, it was put in files on one of the Teams channels. Every squadron needs to have an AE notebook, or as I like to call it, a continuity book. So, since you already have an AE notebook for the squadron, if you have an AEO who is working on their tech rating in the specialty track, it's just busy work to compile a whole new AE notebook. As I have mentored new AEOs in our own squadron who are working on their tech rating in the specialty track, I just have them go over and review our AE notebook, update it, and make any changes that are necessary. I consider this fulfilling the performance requirement for the tech rating and the intent of what the AE notebook is all about. As mentioned, you can use any type of platform or program to compile your AE notebook, and I'd like to introduce you to one of the tools that we have in our Office 365 program that I use to compile our AE notebook for Squadron 188. The program is called Sway, and it was introduced to me by one of our AEOs who in my squadron was working on their specialty track and began to compile our AE notebook using this. Here is our squadron's AE notebook using the Sway program. You can insert pictures to make it visually appealing, and it also has nice ways to make links to other documents, inserting pictures and videos. Just under our title page, for example, we inserted links to the 3 most important documents for AEOs and the AE program, and those being CAP Pamphlet 50-1, CAP Reg 50-1, and CAP Pamphlet 50-2. After the title page and including links to the pertinent information on the pamphlets and regulations, we go on to have the 10 tabs and provide information in each. In the first tab, titled Appointment of AEOs, we've included the list of the AEOs who are in our squadron. At the bottom of that list of our AEOs, and by the way, this is just a report from eServices, we include the date that it was last updated. And this is one of the things that a new AEO working on their specialty track can go through your AE notebook and update it. Moving on to the next tab, the AEO Specialty Track, once again we decided to include the report on the people in our squadron who are working on their specialty track. In the next tab, which is the AE STEM programs and products, we decided to include some of the links to some of the various programs that are available to AEOs and AEMs. For example, here's the link that we provided for the Stellar Explorers program, which takes you to their website, which gives you all the information about the program, how to apply, and how the competition works. The other links we included on this tab is information on the STEM Kit program, a direct link to the AE downloads and resources and e-services, and information on Cyber Patriots and the Model Rocketry program. So again, the idea is to provide pertinent information in each of these tabs that would be beneficial and helpful to a new AEO in your squadron. Moving on to tab 4 in AEX, we have links both to the Go Civil Air Patrol website, which describes the AEX program, and a link to e-services where you can apply for and complete the AEX program. As we move down to tab 5 for AEM's ACE and Top Flight, we have links to the AEM site where AEMs can register and find out about the program, a link to the curriculum for the ACE program, and then also information on the top flights. By the way, if you have an AEM who would like to do a top flight, contact me as I set up the missions for the top flights in California. Moving on to tab 6, AE Awards, there's just information on where you can go to get information on all the different types of awards. We've also included a link to a video on how to do the Jaeger Award. This is a primer on how to achieve the Jaeger Award. It is, of course, named after Chuck Yeager, the first man to fly faster than the speed of sound. It goes on to show where you can find the textbook for preparing for the exam, and then in e-services, how to get to the examination page and take it. Next, tab 7 concerns budgets, grants, and funding, with a link on how to apply for the Air Force Association's grant. The AEPOA is next up, and we discussed this at our last class, so I won't get into a lot of detail, but it does mention that currently CAP Pamphlet 50-1 and CAP Reg 50-1 do not agree with one another, and there's an explanation of the proper way of doing your squadron plan of action. The activity report is pretty straightforward, and it just talks about how to do the activity report at the end of the year in e-services. The last required tab, Inspection Preparation, covers what you need to do to prepare for an SUI inspection. And if you were here for our last class, we had an excellent presentation by the Wing Inspector General, Lieutenant Colonel Sturgill. So that's just an example of one AE notebook and the platform you can use to prepare and what we use at our own squadron. But before I go on and show a little bit about how to use SWAY, I'd like to show you where in Teams we're going to keep examples of different types of AE notebooks you can use. Personally, I find Teams to be a little clunky, which means it's either a little bit clunky or I just don't know how to use it very well. Anyway, on the Teams channel, we have a Teams called California Wing Aerospace Education. And one of the things about this is as new members come on board as AEOs, we want to include them, but it's a process of having to go through reports and finding the new AEOs and adding them as members. So if you're not a member of this, please contact me and I'll make sure to put you on as a member of the Aerospace Education team. If you open the Aerospace Education team and go to General, then slide up to Files, we have a number of files here and we're still working on cleaning these up. But if you go down to Sample AE Notebooks, we right now just have two folders, one that talks about how to use SWAY and the other one on how you might do your AE notebook by putting the different tabs in different files. Now, if your squadron has an AE notebook that's particularly good or that you're particularly proud of, we'd love to get a copy of it and put it in this folder so that it can be used as another example of how to compile your AE notebook. The real purpose being that we don't all need to keep reinventing the wheel and we can support each other and share our ideas. Now I'd like to just show you a little example of how to use the SWAY program, which once again is in our Office 365 Wings program. If you go to your California Wing email in the Outlook program and then go into the upper left-hand corner where the 9 dots are and click on that, it will open all the applications that are available to you in Outlook. Find Sway, and by clicking on that, it will take you to that web page. Here's the Sway web page, and once again, I find it a bit clunky, which again means it's somewhere on the continuum between being clunky and I just don't know how to use all the functions. I'm just going to show briefly a couple of the things you can do with Sway, but the way I learned it was just looking on YouTube and finding some videos, and it's really pretty self-explanatory. It gives you some templates to work with, but if you just go on to start a blank one, it'll take you to this page, which allows you to start your first part of the title page. We'll keep it simple and just title this AE Notebook. Then it allows you to select, if you want, a picture from anything you have either on the internet or your own and drop it into the picture square there. And then you click on play and that shows you what it's going to look like. Well, if you don't like the layout, then you can go and just change some of the settings and just kind of modify it. Try out some different things. Go back to play, and that's good enough. That's just for practice purposes. Now I can go back to edit and add another card, and it gives you some different selections here. I think what I'll do is go here and add an image, and what I'll do is put in the report of the AEOs that we have in our squadron. And this is where I think it gets a little bit funky. Here, and this is one of the things I don't really understand, this particular document, which was downloaded from eServices, gets broken down into a number of sub-pages. So when I review my progress and I look down, it has some things that I may not want, like the CAP logo. I may take that out. There's my eService report of the AEOs in the squadron. But then below that, I may not really want the warning. So I can just go back to the edit page and just trash, there's a little trash can, and deselect the portions that I don't want. I'll take out the CAP logo. I'll go down, there's my form. I'll take out the warning. Below that is the date that the report was pulled from eServices. And this box just says page 1 of 1, which I don't need. Now when I go back to review my work, it just shows the CAP membership listing, the document itself, and at the very bottom I left in the date that it was pulled. Again, not to get into a lot of detail on how to operate Sway, but just to show you like how to embed a video like I did with the Jaeger Award. Like a document, you can go to your files and just select a video that you have, and again, just drag and drop it into the box, and it'll take a little while to upload, and there you have it. Going back to the play button, then you can just scroll down. There's the video, and when it's clicked on, it'll play automatically. Alternatively, you could also go to YouTube or some other video on the website. In this case, I went ahead and typed in Jaeger Award. Select the video you want to embed, then just copy the URL, and then just add another page to your Sway program. You can just select a document, and then there is a link connection there. Drop in your web link, and then just give it a title. Now when someone clicks on that title, it'll take them to that video on YouTube. And of course, that same process works for any link that you might want to do to connect to eServices or the CAP Go Civil Air Patrol website. I won't go into any more details on how to use Sway. If you're interested in using it, you can find a lot of information, by looking at YouTube or just playing around with it. As I mentioned earlier, the AE Notebook is required for the specialty track. You should have one at your squadron, and it's a useful tool. But how you develop it on what platform is up to you. If you have an AE Notebook that maybe was developed on some other type of platform or something that you're particularly proud of, we'd love to see it so that we can include it in our examples of AE Notebooks. Finally, and in conclusion, and if you're still awake, as I mentioned at the beginning, the AE Notebook is a continuity book, it's a resource book, and it's a records book. And all this is good, but it doesn't do any good unless it's accessible. In our squadron, we keep it in teams under our squadron, AEOs, and in the files section. So just make sure that wherever it's located, that people are aware of that. And don't forget to look at it several times a year to make sure that it's current and up to date. And if you have any questions on the AE notebook or anything, ask a fellow AEO or go up the chain through your group, or we're always here to help you at the wing level.